Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the East Bank Stadium Committee's public comment meeting. This is the first of five. This is the first of five public comment meetings regarding the mayor and the team's proposal for a new Titan Stadium. We are here at East High today in District 5 in my district. If anybody out there doesn't know me, I am Councilmember Sean Parker, representing this wonderful area of town. This institution, I believe, is in its 90th year. East High School is in its 90th year this year, which is just phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely. So if you look around, you'll see just the beautiful attention to detail and design that went into building this facility, and the renovations in the late 80s as well. So it's a real gem, and we're real happy that they were able to host us here today. I want to recognize some of our elected officials. I haven't seen any non-council member folks walk in, so if you're out there and I missed you, just please let us know, raise your hand. But I do see Council Members Withers is here, Quante Toombs from District 2 is here. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong list, apparently. Actually present in the room, we have Councilmember Benedict, District 7, thank you for being here. Councilmember Zulfat Swara, at large, for being here, thank you. Councilmember Withers is here, and Councilmember Hurt is here. And then I also saw Freddie walk in just now. Thank you for joining us, Freddie. So Freddie O'Connell, Councilmember for Downtown. So we are going to have a presentation from Bob Mendez. This is Councilmember Bob Mendez, at-large member. He's going to review some of the information that we have so far about this proposal. And I want to take a second to thank Bob for putting this committee. So this is actually a meeting of the East Bank Stadium Committee. That's a committee that consists of, seven or eight of us council members, and we're tasked with sort of gathering information about this proposal, sharing it with the public, hearing from experts, and we're not making a yay or nay recommendation on the proposal. We're here to gather information. We're here to make sure the public has access to that information. And if you check out our website, you can just Google East Bank Stadium Committee or East Bank Committee, Nashville. It'll come up pretty easily. We've got like tons of primary source documents on there. So all the lease documents, basically everything that we have access to as council members, we've put on that website for the public, for journalists, anybody who's interested to have access to. So please check that out. And with that, I will turn it over to Councilmember Mendez for his presentation.
Thanks, Sean. Good evening, everybody. So there are no speakers in the back of the room. So if y'all have a hard time in the back, if you move forward 5 or 10 rows, I think you'll hear the sound is better. But let me know if we run into issues with that. And then I'll also apologize in advance. I froze my rear off at a football game in Kentucky over the weekend, and my voice is shot. So thanks, Councilman Parker and Councilman Withers in particular. They're both on the East Bank Stadium Committee, and they're the two districts that are immediately adjacent to the area where a new stadium might be. Councilman Withers has it in his district, and then you could hit a 9-iron into Councilman Parker's district from there. So I appreciate their active involvement. I've got the council office here who's going to work my slides, and so we're going to go to the first slide. First, that QR code will take you to the East Bank Stadium Committee page, and as Councilman Parker mentioned, it's got literally everything that we've got access to. It's got all the legislation and original lease documents for the current stadium. It's got videos of every meeting we've had of the committee since July, all the presentations we've received. This presentation is online already, thanks to the council staff this afternoon. And as Councilman Parker covered most of what's on this slide, our job is to gather information, and we're not going to be taking a vote to recommend for or against any stadium recommendation. We're just the portal, the point of access to gather information both through the council and the public. We have, and I really appreciate the council office taking this very seriously. This is the website that we've put together for the stadium is as robust a set of information as we've had on any issue ever. And so please take advantage of it. The ground rules for today is I'm going to give this presentation, and then we're going to have speakers, and we're going to try a 3-minute time limit for folks. And we've got Angelina's going to help us. You're going to get a yellow wavy piece of paper when you get to 30 seconds left, and then a red one when it's time to stop. I'm sure everybody's going to respect the time and the process and let that go forward. We're not going to do any Q&A today because for speed and efficiency, we'd like folks to rely on the web page that you can get to with that QR code or Googling it, as Councilman Parker said. So the last thing I'll say about the presentation is consistent with the idea that the committee's not taking a vote one way or the other. I'm going to try on this presentation to be an even-handed, give an even-handed description of things the committee has learned. I'm not going to get into my personal views one way or the other. I think for people who are really love the stadium idea, I'm probably not going to be enthusiastic enough. For people who really dislike it, I'm probably not going to be critical enough. But the job here is to present the information that the council's received so far. So the starting point is what's in the current stadium lease. For those of you who have followed this, know there's a lot of controversy around what does the current stadium lease require. And there's really basically 3 numbers that have mattered. One is what's the minimum obligation under the current lease. The second one is what would a fancier renovation of the stadium cost. And third would be what would a new stadium cost. And for each of those numbers, the key things that matter are what's the cost and how do we pay for it. So first, the most important terms in the current lease that lead to a lot of the controversy and debate are, first of all, the lease requires that it be maintained in a, quote, first-class condition. And that means in the second bullet point, it says improvements and new technology that exist in a reasonable number of comparable facilities. And reasonable number isn't defined in the lease. And the next slide in a second, we'll talk about what comparable facilities mean. If you go download this presentation from the website, there's a link on each slide to the presentation where these slides came from. All of these slides are from presentations that have already been given to the council. So this one came from Council Director Margaret Darby's presentation to the council on July 28. So reasonable numbers not defined. Comparable facilities is defined, but it's open to debate also. Comparable facilities include all stadiums built within 10 years before and after our current stadium. So basically a window from 1989 to 2009. And then the lease lists out some examples. And there's a huge variety in those stadiums. The Dallas Cowboys Stadium, which any of you who watch football know is a very large, impressive stadium, is included in that because I think it was built at the end of the 20-year period. And then also there's multiple stadiums that have been torn down and don't exist anymore. And so where the lease says improvements in technology for a reasonable number of comparable facilities, people have disagreed and will probably continue to disagree about exactly what that standard is. And this is as much definition as somebody could give to it, short of litigation. And so nobody wants to litigate, but that's what the lease says, and sort of the squishiness of reasonable number of comparable facilities is what leads to the debate about what the cost would be to honor the existing lease. All right, so the first option is renovate the stadium. And we've gotten a lot of information from the committee about what that would mean. And there's basically, again, two numbers: a minimum due under the lease renovation and a really nice renovation. And we've looked at both. What we've seen is historical information is the most expensive renovations done in the NFL have topped out around $500 to $600 million so far. But let's talk a little bit more. I've got two slides about the minimum lease obligation and two about what a very nice renovation would look like. So for the minimum due under the lease, this slide is information from a 2017 consultant report. And at a minimum, to just do basic repairs to the stadium through the life of it, at that time, 20 years, was $293 million. That report was really clear that not everything was included, that number. So we probably know for sure that there's no way on earth that minimum due under the lease renovation could possibly be this low. It's almost certainly higher than that, maybe a lot higher than that. And I told you, let's go to the next slide. Here's the list of things that weren't included in the 2017 report. You'll see that there's a lot of things like installation architectural fees, contractor fees, and all these things add up, usually sometimes I think as high as 20% of a contract price. So definitely more than the 293 on the previous page. One thing that is proponents of a new stadium always want to make sure to mention is that this would be paid for entirely by, quote, general obligation bonds, and that means about 50% of that is property tax, and about 25% of it is sales tax, and the rest is general revenue from Metro. So if we were going to do the minimum under the lease, whatever that number is, it's probably GO bonds, and it's very property tax heavy in a way that the other options are much less property tax heavy. So on the next slide, what's the cost of a very nice renovation? Here I call it the preferred renovation. And the two slides here show what it takes to bring the stadium up to the very nice renovation now. And the next slide is about what it takes to keep it there for another 20 years. And this, wow, now there's no sound issue. That's amazing. All right, so again, this shows $945 million for a near-term obligation for the very nice renovation. Some of y'all might have seen last week, there in the media or on social media, there were some images of what the very nice renovation would look like. It included things like a covered rooftop and a 3-story sports bar and a songwriter's lounge. It was a very nice renovation. The next slide, you can see that in addition to the $945 million to get it to do the renovation, it would be another $894 million to keep the stadium there through the course of the next 20 years for a total price tag for the very nice renovation of $1.83 billion. So we've got, and this is a thing that a lot of council members and people in the public are debating and wrestling with. On the one hand, we've got 5 years ago, the consultant report said 293 plus some other cost for doing basic repairs to the place. We know that the most expensive stadium renovations ever so far have been around $500 or $600 million, and we've got this price for a very nice renovation of $1.8 billion. And obviously, there's a lot of a wide gulf of numbers there. And the best I can tell you all to do from the committee's perspective of gathering information. At this point, anybody who falls at the high end or the low end of that has got plenty of information available on our website to back them up, I think. And people need to just take a look at it and decide how they feel about that themselves. All right, so now we've been through the what's a minimum renovation, what's a very nice renovation. Let's talk about the proposed new stadium. And the first thing we'll look at is the funding structure. And I know this is small print, but again, you can download this and look at the source document. It's the mayor's office presentation to the council on October 26. Very briefly, it's got $2.1 billion total cost. Of that, $840 million would come from the team and sources related to the team. $500 million would come from the state. That $500 million's got a hook on it. It can only be used for a new stadium for that state, $500 million. And then there's $760 million of revenue bonds that Metro would put up through the Sports Authority. And so the total public expenditure is around $1.2 billion between the state and the local amount to build a new football stadium. And also as part of the deal, the bottom couple of points, the city would be relieved of a current $30 million obligation for things that need to be done right now to the stadium, and also relieved of the last $30 million worth of bonds for the current stadium. So that's another $60 million that would be to Metro's benefit as part of this $2.1 billion package. I talked about its price and source of funds is always important. So for the source of funds, there are multiple sources, and again, small print, but you guys can download this. If you've been following it, you know that probably one of the two biggest revenue sources will be hotel occupancy tax, increasing that by 1% for the entire county. That's another component that is only available to build a new stadium. Any renovation would not be able to access the 1% hotel occupancy that could only be used for a new stadium. Then it would be 100% of the sales tax from inside the stadium, and then 50% of the sales tax from a surrounding 130 acres. And for comparison, 130 acres it covers everything from the river to the interstate, and from between the two bridges downtown, Korean Veterans up to Woodland Street, and that's about 100 acres, so it's a little bit bigger than that for the 130 acres. Sales tax, half of it would be included from that area. A $3 ticket tax for all events, basically, in the stadium. Right now, there's a $3 tax on Titans tickets, and there'd be rent tied to $3 per ticket for a non-Titans event. For the team's funding, there's a series of sources in the last two bullet points, and those, if you can click one more there, those at this point, we don't know the breakdown of what that will be. The thing I hear most frequently from constituents and people who live outside the county who go to games is what part of that will be personal seat licenses is not known. And maybe we don't need to know what it is as long as they come up with $840 million, but that's a thing that we don't know right now. Next, one of the most important things that I think has become clear is that this is not just a build a stadium deal. It's a build a stadium deal plus figure out how to fund all future repairs for the new stadium, plus build a stadium village 20 acres right around the stadium, plus figure out how to pay for the infrastructure for the 100 acres where sales tax will be coming from. And so the design here is, on the financing side, is to definitely create more revenue than it takes to just build the stadium. So on other deals, like on the convention center a decade ago, there was a great deal of concern that whether the revenue streams would be enough to pay for the convention center and whether we would all be on the hook for a shortfall. And here, if anybody is going to think about it, they need to think about it the other way around. The idea here is to drive such large revenue streams that it pays for not only the stadium, but funds a capital repair reserve fund to take care of any improvements to the stadium for years to come. So that needs to, will be, and so here we list out the things that'll happen with the excess revenues. The team will get some called a maintenance repair fund that will be for ongoing, relatively minor capital improvements year in and year out. The Metro government at some point will have the right to up to $25 million a year to help offset some of the infrastructure cost. And then a large capital repair reserve fund will be created. All we know about that at this point is that it'll be at least hundreds of millions of dollars is what that's supposed to be. But we don't have the details on that. If you can hit the next slide. Those three circles are numbers that we don't know at this point what they are. And if you can go one more, some of the other things that we don't know the exact price of yet are there. All right, next to what it'll actually look like. This is a drawing from the planning department that is meant to be conceptual. You can see where the river is and the three bridges and where the interstate. The new stadium will be set farther back than the current one. Again, this is conceptual. Those roads don't exist. It imagines a scrapyard is gone, but it gives you an idea about where it would be and also the scope of the infrastructure needed to make the area work. I'm going to go through some slides next from the team about what it would look like, the team's architect. This is an exterior shot, and then the next one shows several outdoor public spaces that the team is excited about being able to provide more year-round public spaces where people can gather, the community can gather in a way that the current stadium is not really appropriate for. Next, I like the interior shots because every single one of them has Derrick Henry stiff-arming somebody. And it's kind of hard to see, but that's what's on the Jumbotron there. And then the team's architects have focused a lot on making it the new building be a premier concert facility. And this is just one way the interior could be set up. Apparently, they're designing it to be able to make a stage go in multiple places and have it be a good place for concerts also. The two last topics I'll cover are things where I'm just going to do one slide that offers different perspectives, and y'all are welcome to follow the links on here and see the entire presentation. First, the team, I think everybody acknowledges and agrees the team has been an active member of the community, and they've proposed what they're calling a community benefits platform that, according to team leadership, would double down and increase the amount of their community engagement by having agreements with a whole variety of our most valued nonprofits in Nashville. On the other side of the coin, some community advocates have argued that there's not enough transparency, inclusivity, or enforceability of these agreements to make sure that the promises being made will be kept. I encourage you again to look at the presentations online and the video for the presentations and decide for yourself. Then on the overall economic impact for the entire community, we had a presentation from the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, talking about the economic benefit. This is just one of many slides talking about how important organizations feel that a new stadium would add a strong pillar to the community here. On the other side, we invited a professional academic economist who made the argument that there is not a return on investment for public investing in stadiums. Again, look at the presentations, and you can make a decision for yourself. So you can look at this QR code to get to the committee site, and now we're going to open it up to having community comments. Y'all can come up to this mic here. We're going to have 3 minutes per person. You're going to get yellow when it's 30 seconds left and red when it's time to stop. I'm sure, I know a lot of you have done this drill before. You're all going to be super respectful, which I appreciate. So with that, we're going to turn it over. Just come on up and maybe line up 3 or 4 people at a time and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Yes, sir. How you doing? Are you ready?
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Tunja Ashford, and I'm a citizen. I love football. I love the Titans. But my question is, I'm on a fixed income, and so I guess my question is, where's the new stadium going to be, and how many of us are going to be displaced? And then what's the remedy for us that's being displaced?
Thank you for comment. Again, we're not going to have Q&A, just one second. All right, so this is an opportunity for us to hear. Please, you can email me at bob.mendez@nashville.gov or your local district council person or all council members at nashville.gov. But today is opportunity just to tell us what your comment is. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilman Mendez. My name is Lisa Leclerc, and I live at 606 Maplewood Lane here in Nashville. And I really want to thank the council for your openness to evaluate this really, really big project. I have lived and worked in Nashville for over 32 years now, and I've seen the growth of our great city. My work has been in hospitality, and I have seen firsthand how bringing the NFL to our city has had a positive impact, certainly on our industry. Recently, The Economist and Professor Bradbury suggested that mostly locals attend football games, and I can tell you that the hotel I managed near the airport area, we based our sales strategies in part on the football schedule and which teams were coming, because the teams travel and so do their fans. Our hotel was completely sold out one night when Garth Brooks played in the open stadium and the thunderstorms required the show to be canceled. We had a hotel full of very disappointed fans, and I can't even fathom the impact to the show's sponsor for the refunds, which must have included tax refunds, I suspect. Our property taxes and jobs and schools have all benefited from additional sales taxes generated from the hospitality industry. And I just want to say I'm in favor of a dome stadium for Nashville. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come up and, voice an opinion. I'm Sam McCullough, native Nashvilleian. Live at 1112 North 6th Street. Graduated from this very high school 45 years ago. Anyway, I think the stadium overall will have a strong financial impact on us, but I'm looking at both sides of it. It's a double-edged sword that can cut both ways if it isn't handled correctly. We are building a city for tourists and visitors, but we have people that live here every day that are struggling because of housing. I was on Facebook today, and I was reading an article about an area now that's getting hit with the dadoos over here in South Inglewood area. they're putting a new house, pretty big size house, Dad do, behind one that's been there for 45 or 50 years. It's creating another tax burden on people who want to stay in the inner city and those who would love to move back to where they grew up. I'm fortunate enough, my family is truly blessed, and the majority of all of us are still where we were when we grew up. I'm in my parents' house on North 6th Street. My dad's sister, 91 years old, is right behind me. My dad's brother's children is 2 streets over. My sister's 1 street over. So this means a lot to me, and we've got to make sure that we don't create another Broadway and First Avenue. Because if we're going to bring buses and people and paddle taverns and hooping and hollering, we lost one strong Black business, Historic Black Tours, owned by Dr. Tommy Morton Young, which I assisted her in managing the buses. We had to cut a tour one day because the people on the pedal buses had gotten so loud they couldn't even hear me talk. So do we really want to recreate that on this side? It's going to have to be managed very carefully. I'm not saying I'm against it, but right now I haven't seen enough to really say I'm completely 100% for it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Schultz. I'm CEO of the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, and but also a resident of Davidson County. And I just wanted to report to you that our members and our leadership have both endorsed this plan and support this plan going forward. I would love to give you some detail, which I have written out here and we'll leave with you, but I'll hit some of the highlights. First of all, the Titans have been an important part of the fabric of this community and the development of this community over since the late 1990s. They've also been very community involved and community invested, and as you've mentioned, they are going to make additional commitments as well. We looked at it from a community investment, economic impact, and financial viability perspective. In fact, we commissioned an independent review of those financial features. And some of the things we learned from Metro data, from state data, from the independent study, from team data, is that the economic impact is about a $30 billion economic impact, which is very important to the entire community because that creates jobs and creates opportunity for the community. Our members have endorsed this plan. We looked at the viability of the revenue sources, including the opportunity to look at some proprietary data, and we found particularly the hotel tax to be a very viable source of funding, the funding for the stadium. We also felt, and I think this was the largest point in all of the discussion we've had through the chamber, is that this is a Metro liability that we now share with partners. We share it with state partners who are putting in $500 million. We're sharing it with the team, and it's reducing the liability, and it's creating the opportunity for the city to have more revenue available to deal with the other issues that face this community. So just wanted to be clear that we've surveyed this with our members. We've discussed this with our leadership. Our board voted unanimously to support this project for the reasons I mentioned, and I'll leave this material with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi, my name is Kyle Cook. I'm at Meadowcrest Lane in Nashville. I encourage everybody to look up J.C. Bradbury's proposal, his pro bono review of the documents and the public sources that are on there. And I find that the figures we're getting in these slides are dubious because they're coming from the Titans, and the Titans hired the firm to get these numbers. So they wildly overestimate the cost of the renovation. If you've seen these slides that they put up, if they want to put the Taj Mahal on top of Nissan Stadium, and I know that Metro Council is trying to be a good steward of our funds and protect that integrity of these leases that we have. But we're not obligated to build the football team, the Taj Mahal. It's not required of you. You are obligated under this current lease to keep the stadium until 2039. And I think that the costs that they've recommended that would be needed to do that are wildly high based on the other renovations that have been done in pro sports over the last 20 years, their figure is 4 times higher than anybody else's renovation. So I don't know how that happens, and I don't know how they came to that figure, but it seems wildly high to me. So that's one consultant that you found. I know in Metro, when we go to buy anything and it costs over $2,500, we have to go out to bid. And so I am astounded that for something that costs $2 billion, we only have one bid. That's crazy to me. We need to get a second opinion, hire another consultant to look at this and get us some other figures, because these figures are so far apart. We can't make a decision when the figures that we got a couple years ago are that far apart. The other thing I'll ask is that you consider not just the future of the football team, but any other pro sports that want to come here. It's easy to imagine in the next 20 years, Major League Baseball is going to want to put a team here. And so if we're going to be building any pro sports stadiums, let's make sure that they'll be able to support not only NFL, but also Major League Baseball teams when they want to come here. And we haven't built multi-use sporting arenas in the last 30 years. The technology was poor back in the 70s and 80s. It's improved now. If you look at the most recent builds in, I would say Tottenham in England, where they have both soccer and NFL stadium, it's reversible. The technology's there to swap out the turf. Both baseball and football use field turf, which is thank you for your time.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Janet Merriweather. I am born and raised here in Nashville. I live in District 9. I'm just going to make 3 points. The first one is that I personally do not want my property taxes to be heightened anymore. That's quite frightening to me. The second thing I want to make a point of is it's wonderful for us to consider that we're building a city that is prone to visitors to come in and see our beautiful downtown area. But we also have 4 HBCUs in the city, and the communities around those HBCUs do not seem to benefit from that word beautiful. So if the stadium is going to benefit, the city's going to benefit, those 4 communities should also benefit. And my final comment is, have you considered, I know I'm forming a question with this, but please consider, I'll say it this way, the number of people who come into Metro Nashville every day, 5 days a week, who work and take a paycheck home from Metro Davidson County, Nashville, and leave and go home to other counties. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Edward Caldwell. I live in Madison in Chipton Towers. And my comment on the stadium, I would like to 100% sure that we need a new stadium, because it's going to cost a lot of money. That's true. You know, we're not talking about little fees. We're talking about big fees that cost a lot of money to do it. But if you look at the overall time things that we can do in that new stadium, it will practically eventually pay for itself and then have a surplus. That's my first comment. And my second comment, I would like to see the council, since I've got the council here all together, I'd like to see a council pass a law where between the hours of 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, that there be a noise restriction on these loud cars coming through the neighborhood where you're trying to sleep and you can't get no sleep because they're waking you up all during the night, all different times. They're racing down the streets. They're coming through the streets. You know, even if they're not racing, they wake you up, you know, ripping their engines up. I don't know why they want to do this to disturb people. But you got an elderly high-rise right there. It wakes up everybody in the elderly high-rise because, you know, people are trying to sleep, even if you don't live in the high-rise, people are trying to sleep. And another thing it causes also it causes a safety concert. If you got a loud car going down the street and you got an emergency vehicle coming down the street with a siren going, and they can't hear the siren, that could cause another accident because they're flying to try to get to rescue somebody or trying to get to help somebody, and you got then, if they can't hear a siren, that could cause an accident also. That's my comments. Thank you.
Council member, my name is Brian Sexton, and after deeply researching and continuing to read up on the plan's development, I do support the plan as it is now. Some of the things that I like about the plan, it does provide a sense of taxpayer relief, as I understand, and that is, I think the obligation that we have now is something that we're legally obligated as taxpayers to absorb. Also, I do like the fact that the land that's in the proposal would come back to Metro, and I forget the acreage number, but that acreage, it was a very significant number. Don't want to go on record, but it may have been like 66 acres. And that land can now be used for things to address housing, to contribute to those solutions, small businesses and things of that nature. So those are the things that kind of stuck out for me as to why the plan has my support. I do believe, and I say this with all sincerity, that, and again, just sitting back and reading comments and researching and really trying to be objective as possible, that the Titans are not solely responsible for the city's affordable housing issues. I do not think the Titans are affordable housing developers. However, organizations like the Titans can step up and contribute to the solution. I think our housing challenge as a city, in my humble opinion, is something that is shared amongst all stakeholders here in Nashville, just not one organization. So I just want to go on record saying that humbly.
Good evening. My name is Adrienne Seamers. I live at 1526 Douglas Avenue. I've been a resident of East Nashville for 17 years now. My daughter is a student on the East Nashville side in Metro Public Schools. I'm in support of the project. We've seen a lot of changes in the East Nashville neighborhood in the last 17 years, and I think the new stadium and surrounding development would be yet another positive change for the community. And the proposed project seems to provide an opportunity to keep our property taxes at bay. And so I just want to voice my support in the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Logan Key, and I live at 1411 Fatherland Street here in East Nashville. I've lived in East Nashville for 15 years. I'm here on behalf of my wife and kids. My son is a student at MNPS. My daughter will, God willing, be bound for MNPS next fall. I've lived within this, within where we're standing for about 15 years, within about 6 or 7 blocks from here. This is the first time I've testified at a public hearing where I didn't actually write out what I wanted to say, because there are 2 key issues that have been on my mind for a month or 2 now that have not been addressed in any of the proposals. And one of them is the fact that the number of events that are needed to make the revenue work out has not been addressed. Not one time have I heard anyone say we're going to have this many events in order to make the revenue work out for Metro and for all of the revenue sources that are needed to make the project work. And I think that's a travesty. If it's going to be the same number of events we have now, fine. I think we've learned to tolerate that. That is, those of us who live within a certain proximity of the stadium and deal with the traffic and deal with the midtown to downtown to East Nashville traffic on game days. But I suspect that there are not enough weekends in the year to support the number of events needed to make the revenue work. And so if we're looking at weeknight events, I would challenge all of you on one of those rare Monday or Thursday nights when we have a Titans game to drive or take the bus from Midtown to downtown to East Nashville. It is absolute, unequivocal gridlock. I don't care if you're on a bus, I don't care if you're on a car or a bicycle. It's that bad. Secondly, I want to say this. the infrastructure needed to get people off the interstate and at the event and back on the interstate after leaving the event has to be addressed before there's a new stadium. It's got to be a precondition of developing a new stadium. That 4-exit stretch between Shelby Avenue and the final one there at Spring Street is not sufficient to get people on and off the interstate. I've heard it said, well, NDOT's working with TDOT to make it all happen. Well, not one green dollar that I'm aware of has been allocated or committed to making that happen as a part of this event. What I fear is we're going to have the shiny object, the stadium, and then, oh, we'll worry about the transit later, worry about the infrastructure later. And I fear that we are headed down the wrong path, and we're headed toward increased traffic and increased gridlock. As Bruce Berry said in his very provocative op-ed, the people coming to the events will be driving to the events. They're not going to be taking buses. We don't have the transit available to make that happen. The last thing I want to say is this. Take into consideration who supports this. It's people who stand to gain financially. Those are the only people who support this project.
My name is David Tucker. I live at 610 Fatherland Street. I've been there for the last 31 years. This seems awful familiar to the old stadium deal. And I would like to offer my comments, not so much about this deal, because I think it's already a done deal. This is a classic example in a good civics class about what political will looks like. Political will for this project is easy. Everybody ponies up, everybody gets it done. The state, the county, the business community. But there are other pressing issues to me that I often wonder, where is the political will? The affordable housing issue has displaced, I think, I saw some numbers somewhere that 11,000 folk have had to leave Davidson County. Those are folk who got priced out. Everybody makes promises of what this is going to do, but where's the political will to actually deal with some of the major problems? I read an article around this that said that the stadium is tied to the overall East Bank development. You can't separate them. You want to talk about them as though you can, but you can't. We're going to create 4 great new neighborhoods. There are many neighborhoods that could be made great that are already here if there was the political will for that. Can you not propose a 1% hotel tax just for affordable housing, just for fixing up neighborhoods? Can you not approach the state to ask for monies for particular city-type projects? As I said before, this is about political will, and for the issues that have a bearing on people's surviving and or thriving, football doesn't even enter on the page. The football team is owned by the Titans. They're going to put in 840 something. Well, they should, because it's theirs. Why can't we do general obligation bonds for some of the issues that are really, really increasing the haves and the have-nots in Davidson County? I've been impacted by the parking forever, ever since it's there. And yes, it does bother me, but what bothers me more is the lack of political will, to the lack that many Nashvillians who will never be able to go to the football game, can't afford, it's not even styled for them. What do we do about the folks who don't have a voice and who don't have the levers to pull the political buttons that are necessary? Thank you.
My name is Bruce LeBon. I live at 769 Brook Hollow Road. I've attended many of the meetings of the East Bank Planning Committee and many of the meetings of the Stadium Committee. And I just want to express my appreciation for the transparency and the fact of the information that you have provided. I would encourage everyone here who hasn't yet looked at the numbers that are on the website and all the information that's on the website to really inform yourselves and take a look at it. It's a tremendous amount of information and very useful. I'm here tonight representing the Children's Museum Development Fund, and we want to also present in the context of the development of the East Bank, not just for the tourists of Nashville, but for all the neighborhoods of Nashville. And so our question is, where is the place for the children in all of the planning that's being done? We have the chance to strengthen and extend educational opportunities for children in every neighborhood by building a world-class children's museum on the East Bank. Children's museums throughout the country are unique and inclusive environments for family-friendly, child-centered learning. Research is clear that discovery through play and hands-on experience offers tremendous benefit for brain development from ages 1 through 10. We need our children and grandchildren, who will be the adults of the city that we're planning now, to be capable and confident leaders of the city. We know the educational gaps that need to be addressed. We know the opportunities that are lacking for children. Anyone who has young children in Nashville or grandchildren understands that the opportunities for families with children between the ages of 1 and 10 are severely limited. Nashville is the largest metro area in the United States without a comprehensive children's museum. We can use this opportunity to build the most modern, state-of-the-art facility to benefit our children and families for years to come. We want to establish the Music City Children's Museum on the East Bank for the adults of Nashville's future. They're in your homes, they're in the schools. Right now, we need to serve them in our planning now. There is nothing else being proposed with the power to draw families from the entire region to make this a neighborhood for all of us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Whitney Pasterek. I live here in District 5. In June of this year, a report was issued here in Nashville titled The Big Squeeze, the State of Economic and Social Well-Being in Nashville. Here are a few of its findings. More than 1 in 10 Nashvillians and nearly 1 in 7 children in Nashville is hungry and lacks for food. More than 1 in 10 seniors in Nashville lives in poverty. 49% of Black single mothers in Nashville live in poverty. 28% of Nashvillians with a disability live below 150% of the poverty threshold. 211,789 workers in Davidson County earn less than $39,000 a year. Half of Nashvillians are in living wage poverty. 79% of economically disadvantaged children in MNPS fail to graduate. Tennessee has the 6th most regressive tax system in the nation. Our working class and poor pay disproportionately high taxes. Tennessee's wealthy disproportionately benefit from the tax system. Since 2017, more people have moved out each year from Davidson County than have moved in. I'd like to read a few words from the person whose letter introduces this presentation on the inequity within our city. Quote, "From the beginning, I have said our vision is of a Nashville that works for everyone, a Nashville that grows and meets the needs of every neighborhood and every family. As this report highlights, in the past 12 months, area housing costs are up 20%, childcare costs are up 40%, and Nashville is the 16th most overpriced housing market in the U.S. As we grow, we must do so in a way that works for every neighborhood and make sure no one gets left behind." Signed, John Cooper, Mayor of Nashville. This administration wants to give $2 billion to a football franchise worth an estimated $3 billion so that wealthy white men can play Sim City with public land. If they would like to match that giveaway with a $2 billion investment in solving the problems outlined in this administration's very own report in the economic and social well-being of the people of Nashville, the ones who work too hard for too little, who are fighting just to keep the lights on and maybe enjoy a nice night out at Red Lobster when they can afford it, then I would consider supporting this development, but we all know that's not going to happen. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I already watched this football franchise walk away once, and I have no problems doing it again. There is a third option, people. I do not want my tax dollars to pay for a football stadium. Thank you to the committee and to you, Councilmember Mendez, for your time and for your service to Nashville.
I want to echo what my neighbor Whitney said about the needs of Nashville. And I also want to thank the committee and all the council members who are working to bring transparency to this process. First, as a taxpayer, I would like a refund on the VSG report that was presented in 2022, just a few weeks ago. In 2017, they presented a report that was approximately $300 million. The report that they presented a few weeks ago was based on what the Titans say. That is unconscionable. Now, the state preempts what we can do with the hotel tax. The state preempts what we can do with our land. And the state preempts what we can do with the $500 million. They want a dome stadium, but the state does not preempt what we can do with how we negotiate with the Titans. And as a taxpayer, I demand that we have equity in the stake of the Titans. If we're going to give them almost $1 billion as taxpayers, I want to know that as their revenues grow, that our revenues grow. And it's funding our schools, and it's funding the children, and it's funding our children who are sleeping on the floor in DCS. I also want a report from this committee on what we do not know. We do not know how many events are needed to make this deal viable. We do not know how much money the Titans have put in for the repairs. We do not know how much the repairs for the new stadium will cost. I want a report on what we do not know. I would also say that a 3-story bar and a songwriting cafe and all those other things do not include a first-class stadium. Another point about the VSG report, in Nashville, Metro government, we have a procurement process. That gentleman said that anything over $2,500 has to go through Metro Council. Metro Council approved $200,000 for this report, and we were billed $315,000. That is $115,000, $115,000 more than what we paid, and we did not get what we wanted. We did not get a report that would give us independent information so that we can make a fact-based decision. Another gentleman said that this will relieve us of a tax burden. Yes, it will relieve us of $60 million, but it would also put us on the hook for another $780 million plus, because we don't know what the renovations will cost for the new stadium. And finally, I would like to say to the supporters of the stadium, someone said all the supporters are benefiting from the stadium, and that's very difficult for me to understand. But to the supporters of the stadium, I would just like to say, I hope that your streets are paved with gold. I hope that you never have a person killed by cars. I hope that your children go to high-performing schools. And I hope you never know what it is to be hungry, because some of us do know those things. And the next time that there is a fight and you have to choose what is right, that you will have the courage to do what is right. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth McDaniels. I am a resident of Donaldson, and I am the immediate past president of the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber of Commerce. The chamber has drafted and approved a letter in support of the new stadium. We believe that this is a fair deal. We believe it's best for the Titans, the city of Nashville, the citizens of Nashville, and of Tennessee. We believe that removing the burden of keeping the stadium up from the taxpayers and freeing up that money for other uses is a very good thing. That should allow us to pay our teachers, our first responders, and others who are very deserving of the money to get that money. And as somebody that is in the meetings and events industry, I believe this is a great thing for the city of Nashville. A dome stadium will open us up to events that we would never have the chance to get otherwise. And it provides a year-round facility for large numbers of people. And I believe that that is a good thing as well. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Craig Clark. I live at 715 Myrtle Street here in East Nashville, just a short walk from this site and the stadium site. I'm also an architect and planner here in the city, and am a strong advocate of the East Bank Vision Plan, which at the NFL is a large part of that vision plan. I'm a huge football fan, having played in my younger years and enjoyed the competitive spirit of football. There are concerns around this deal, concerns about the capital funding plans for repair and for maintenance. And those questions need to be answered before this project can go forwards. Also, the stadium village around the stadium is supposedly 40 acres large. The special tax district that would pay the $500 million in state funds is 130 acres. What happens to those other 90 acres? What happens if that development doesn't come forth within the next 5 years? I want to know who pays that debt service when those developments don't come online and the sales tax that the state is then just deferring doesn't exist. When Nissan Stadium was built, it was supposed to spur development around the stadium. We have gotten one La Quinta Inn and that was built in the last year and a half. While it is also great that the Titans are bringing forth a community benefits platform, I do strongly question some of their community benefits. $5 million for affordable housing is quite laughable. Amazon is investing a large sum of money, almost double that $5 million, and they do not rely on revenue bonds. They do not rely on sales tax within their buildings to get their buildings built and their office space incorporated. Apologize if I'm going over. It's all red here. Another large concern for me is parking around the stadium. The lease requires 2,000 parking spots. Within the East Bank Vision Plan, Central Waterfront District, where the stadium would be located, does not require parking, with the intent that the UDO does not require parking at all. Recent legislation passed eliminates parking minimums and places maximums on those parkings, which means we would have to somehow rely on private development to park the stadium. I don't understand why those property owners would be incentivized to build over their parking maximums, which then they're penalized for to provide parking for a stadium. We're going to see large parking structures around the stadium, and it will not be good for the East Bank plan. The reported costs of the renovation also do not make sense to me. The VSG study that came out was, as the previous speakers mentioned, based entirely off the Titans design by the architect that the Titans hired. And it is not based off of what Metro's lease obligations are. That needs to be resolved. I do believe that children's museums, TPAC, civic use are all amazing benefits over there. So, thank you.
Hi, my name's Roddy Story. I wanted to thank y'all for hosting us tonight and hearing everyone's opinion. I have two young boys in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I would also cut off my right arm if it would save Derrick Henry's pinky toe. So I've got sort of a lot weighing on my mind here. Honestly, when I first heard of the plans to build a new stadium and a domed stadium, I thought it was unnecessary. I thought it seemed crazy. Then I started looking at our current obligation and thinking about the current stadium that sits on 100 acres of Metro property, and it is hard to imagine a more underutilized asset than the stadium and the parking lots as they currently are. You're talking about 100 acres for 8 Titans games, TSU home games, and then a handful of concerts. And I think we can do better for all of the citizens of Nashville. Out of context, arguments against the new stadium that cite the funding needs of other important priorities make sense. And I will tell you the number one priority for me is per pupil expenditure for Metro schools, and that's not where I would like it to be. But it's not a zero-sum game. A new stadium could create new revenue streams that wouldn't otherwise exist. We've heard about the hook that we're on for the old stadium through bonds, and we've heard about the investments by the state, Titans, and the hotel industry that would only exist in the new stadium build and not a renovation. Consider the upside of a new stadium with the roof, the potential for a 10-fold increase in events, no Garth Brooks rain delays, and the possibility of a Final Four Super Bowl. These events translate into revenue streams for the entire city that can be deployed for things like education and affordable housing. Investing in a new stadium doesn't divert resources from other priorities, it grows the pie. Nashville should monetize this incredible but underutilized asset, and better yet, let's let the tourists and users of the stadium help foot the bill, which is only true with a new stadium. Thank you very much.
It's all right.
How you doing there? My name is Robert Savage. I live in District 3. I'm a Nashville native, went to White Creek High School, Tennessee State, played football there. I'm in favor of the stadium. I do know the benefits from having the stadium could uptake us how Atlanta did in '96 with the Olympics. The Super Bowl would change the whole outlook of the city and other events. That we can cycle some of that money to our education here in metro schools and fix up our roads just off of the benefits from those events. The only pushback I will say I have is to make sure we take care of TSU in this process. I feel like they've been a loyal tenant. Especially me playing there and going to the next level and playing in the NFL for a short period of time. I hate to see TSU's current state in the shape that it is. Hopefully we can find a way to cycle some money into the plan to give TSU some money.
Good evening. I'm Kenya Magruder from the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, and I stand here as the Director of Civic and Community Engagement on behalf of our President and CEO, Clifton Harris, and our Board of Directors. We are a community partner with the Tennessee Titans, and a part of that community partnership is Keep Nashville Home. And as many people have spoken here, we know that housing is of vast concern here in Nashville, but what about for our seniors? So we are helping promote the Property Tax Freeze Program in partnership with the Titans, Nashville NAACP, as well as the Office of Erica Gilmore, who is the Metro Trustee. And so we want to make sure that seniors who are 65 and older by December 31st of this year, that they who meet a 44,000 combined income know that they can freeze their property taxes if they own their home. So we are working to work with the Titans to make sure that this community stays one community. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much, especially to the East Bank Stadium Committee, the council members, for your efforts on pulling all of this information together. It's sincerely appreciated. And for those council members who are in attendance tonight, who are devoting that time to help review such an important topic. I'd like to start out by saying that it's an interesting time that I feel that the city is in, when just 3 years ago that the comptroller himself sat within the Metro Council chambers and was there to speak to the city on behalf of the state of our finances. Never would I have believed that we would be contemplating a $2.1 billion public-private investment on the East Bank with extending other public financing and funding that's required. My concern specifically to the East Bank Stadium Committee and the Metro Council as a whole is to understand the outstanding maintenance funding and obligations that have not been fully provided yet. Parking requirements and the extraneous costs, the infrastructure costs for the overall development that will be surrounding the perimeter development, and the other adjacent development property costs. Are there expectations with the support of the development of something like TPAC or other investments that are being withheld at this time that would need to be disclosed in order to understand the full financial impact of such a development on the East Bank? The architecture and the stadium itself looks fantastic. The architecture appears first rate. But at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, this is a project that is a financial decision on behalf of the city, because as several of our neighbors have already discussed, our concerns about support and interest in the funding for public safety, E911, and our police officers to be able to respond, funding for our schools, the ability to have a functional transit system within the city, as well as supporting Vision Zero guidelines and infrastructure improvements to our sidewalks and our libraries are critical. I asked two specific questions that I hope that the council will consider. One is that the Tennessee Titans, should this deal move forward in the current proposal, that they would increase their private funding and their overall equity within the project to help the city that they call home. Secondarily, I would also ask that we fully understand who this project is for and how they will benefit as part of that community benefits platform. As a discrete example, can we not offer tickets or funding for programming so that our citizens are guaranteed the opportunity and the ability for those to be able to afford events within this venue that is being supported by their own tax dollars? Thank you.
My name is Andre Jackson. I'm in support of the stadium. I actually came here, I didn't have anything prepared for this, but I'm kind of at a wow place. I mean, I've heard a lot of people speak for it and against it. For the individuals, I'm sorry, y'all. We have turned a corner in Nashville, Tennessee. We've turned a corner. We have grown. I'm sorry, this project is needed for the city. Our city is based on basically the service industry attracting individuals to the city. We need facilities that can house events. People love our city. We are a 5-star city now. I'm sorry, I know that, I'm one of the individuals that somewhat has been priced out of Nashville, Tennessee. That goes along with the territory. I don't see there being any room for, an expansion of affordable housing. The reason why housing is so high, please just use common sense. Inflation, the prices of materials going up, all the above. And what tends to look like affordable housing is still going to be priced out because the market has set itself. People in Nashville, Tennessee, I fear one day waking up in this great city and this city looks like Cleveland, Ohio. That's where it's going to go. I'm sorry, we turned the corner. When we built the convention center, we turned that corner. I believe that this council has an obligation to continue to bolster our city. We are an entertainment mecca. I seen the guy out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I kind of made fun of him a little bit. Well, actually, I got to laughing with my wife and a couple friends. It looks like Arthur Blank sent him. Atlanta, Georgia sent him. The individual that came up with all the numbers where it don't work, okay? Because they don't want us competing with them for convention dollars, attracting businesses, attracting all sorts of things in this city here. We become a premier city in the Southeast, outside of Atlanta, Georgia. This here needs to be done. I'm sorry. Economically, it just needs to be done in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I am a Nashville native, born in 37208, went to school at elementary at 37211, graduated 37218 from the Whites Creek High School. I am also a graduate of the illustrious Tennessee State University. My comment is this, and yes, I support the new stadium. Why? Because when I look at the current stadium, and even if it's at the minimum of $293 million for the renovation, Metro taxpayers are on the hook for that. That $293 million that the Metro taxpayers would have to pay can then be freed up under the new stadium because Metro taxpayers are off of it. They don't have that tax burden. So now that money that they would have spent under the 20-year agreement on the current stadium is free to go to education, free to go to our first responders, free to go to those communities that should be benefiting from that $293 million. I say this to also say that I believe that the Titans have shown in more ways than one that they are about the community. And they have tried, we were talking about affordable housing. Someone mentioned earlier that the affordable housing problem was not created with the Titans and it's not gonna end with the Titans. You got Amazon, you got all the other companies that are moving here because one, there is no state income tax. However, the Titans have made a conscious effort to be involved in the community. And I do believe that with this new stadium will come, there's only going to be on an average 10 games from the Titans played in the new stadium. So of course, it's going to open us up to other events. Tennessee State will play maybe on an average 4 games at the new stadium. But other things will come. They will come because of who we are. And the revenue will start building and will then start paying for the construction of the new stadium. So I just say this, those who go to the stadium will pay for the stadium. Those who don't won't have to. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Donna Jones. I live in District 2. I have been here 68 years of my life, and I have seen so many changes here in Nashville, Tennessee. So the things that attracted people to come here, we're losing. That's one thing that I really would like to change, to see change. But more than anything, I want to just say, I'm an original founder of Yes for Nashville, which actually brought the Titans here for that referendum. My family, Jones Construction, was the minority company that helped build the current stadium. I worked as a subcontractor until 2008 at the stadium. I see that the stadium needs lots of renovation. It rains in there on people's heads while they're trying to work. So those things are going to happen, and the die has already been cast. So we, as a people, if you don't like it, you have to use your power to vote for people to represent you. However, I would like to say this, Mr. Mendez, you've been a great steward and tried to help everyone here. So I want you to help my kids at KIPP Academy Nashville. They have been leasing the property from the old Highland Heights and was promised by the previous mayor, Mary Berry, that they would get a gym. I was late today because I had to go get my baby from South Inglewood so she could practice basketball. They have no gym, they have no stadium. And here we're talking about $1 billion, and my kids have nowhere to practice, nowhere to play, nothing. So I'm here to represent them to say, hey, you want your child to be a Tennessee Titan player, or, well, I would say New York Giants, that's what I'm thinking. But you want them to do all these wonderful things, and you have given our kids nothing. There's no place for them to go, but you always want to complain, people. They break in your cars, they do this. When we had Opryland, that was my first job in 1972. I appreciated having that first job. Our kids have nothing, so I have no problem bringing the stadium here. Bring it on, because I am hoping it will bring other things for our children, like a gym for my kids and a stadium for my kids. If you can't do that, Robert E. Lillard is sitting over there empty for almost 3 years now that you can move the high school there. So consider the children first, people. I'm 68. I'm at the end of my days. We need to consider our children now.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Watson. I live in District 17. I'm like a stone's throw away from the new soccer stadium. And, you know, I have a lot of thoughts about the soccer stadium, but all in all, you know, one of the things was it was put up, there was no infrastructure around it. But regardless of all of those kind of issues, I love the community that it brought in. And one of the things I loved was the work that Stand Up Nashville did, was that they had the community benefits agreement, and that I knew Nashvillians that worked that stadium got a living wage. They got sliding childcare. There was affordable housing. And what wasn't really, I guess what I'm asking for is a little bit of clarity about that community benefits agreement, because on your slide, I thought there was a couple of bullet points, but you went by it pretty fast. And I looked online, and the bullet pointed slide isn't on there on your slide on the website. And all we have is like Stand Up Nashville's presentation and the Titans presentation. And so it's not really clear, like, where are we in the community benefits agreement? Is that happening? And I guess I just wanted to make a statement to say that I, as a citizen, would appreciate a bit of insight into that, because that's kind of what got me on board for GEDIS, was that I knew the jobs these people were providing were good Nashville jobs. Because to me, it looks like the football stadium's going to be a wash. Hopefully it'll pay for itself. Great. That's what it should do. But if we know that they're coming in and creating good jobs, you know, they have affordable childcare at GEDIS. Childcare is awful in Nashville. I have a 6-year-old kid. It took me 3 years to find him a place. You know, so that is something that would help the women of Nashville and, you know, just help Nashvillians in general, the citizenry. And I think us talking a bit more about that and investing in that will allow us to buy in a little bit easier, just because we know that we get advantages as well for our investment in the project. And I guess that's it.
Good evening. My name is Clifton Harris. I'm the president and CEO of the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. And on behalf of the board of directors, we support the building of a new stadium for the Tennessee Titans. Yes, our city has a housing crisis. Our city also has a healthcare crisis. Our city has a transportation crisis. Our city has a daycare crisis. But I have yet to hear anyone mention the fact that our city also has an income problem. And that income problem can be supported by a strong, robust workforce development plan. And the Titans One Community Plan addresses that by partnering with many organizations throughout the Nashville-Davidson County area. And we stand ready to support that initiative as well. So I'm hoping that the resources that are freed up, as a result of the new structure, for the new stadium, can be put to use to invest in our most precious resource that we have in our city, and that is our human capital, the citizens of this great city of Nashville. And $15 an hour is not going to solve our housing problems, our daycare problems, as well as our healthcare problems. But when people have workforce opportunities that gives them access to livable wages, they can solve those problems. And I think this plan is a plan that will do that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Renee Ramos, and I live at 710 Cleo Miller Drive. I'm a Nashville native, grew up in East Nashville. I've seen a lot of growth in Nashville over the last probably 15 or 20 years especially, and I can speak for me and my family that we've enjoyed the growth. I have lots of family who work in Nashville, and we love the Titans, and I'm for the stadium. I think it'll do great things for the city in the long run.
How you doing, Bob? Thanks for hosting this. My name is Don Harden. I'm with Don Harden Group. And yes, the Titans did hire me to help them with their part of their community benefits. I've done construction in Nashville all my life, well, a good part of my life, born and raised here. I asked the president and CEO of the Titans a lot of questions about his sincerity to involve the community. And after a long discussion, he said something that kind of surprised me. He wanted us to look under their own hood. In other words, he wanted us to inspect how the Titans do business and to see if they can do things better. How are they spending money with the vendors? How are their vendors giving back to the community? He wanted their buy-in. With that, I bought into helping the Titans with their benefits plan and more importantly, how they'll spend money on the large project. Of course, I also worked on the Music City Center. And of course, that was a task. And we had similar problems with, hey, the city is not going to benefit. And I think everybody can see that the Convention Center Authority now is doing well and they're able to give money to other causes. I see the same benefit happening with the Titans project. But my goal and my obligation is to make sure people who look like me, women and men and women-owned businesses in the city will benefit. And not only that, but if we put more money in their pockets, then they can afford to live in some places in the city. So that's our goal. Thank you.
My name is Dan O'Dell. I live at 1503 Wendell, which is Emily Benedict's story. I think she's around here somewhere, I don't know whether I support this or not. I see pluses and minuses on both sides. I think the pluses on the new stadium, of course, in essence, gets Nashville off the hook for a lot of expenses and brings the state in the Titans, and I guess the NFL's putting some money into it too. Plus, the Titans, I understand, will cover cost overruns, which hasn't been discussed. The renovation, of course, would be less expensive potentially. We could take out a few of the garden parks or bars or whatever, maybe cut that price down a little bit. But our property taxes would be on hook for that. And at the end of the day, we just have an old stadium with some lipstick on it. And I think that's maybe not a good idea long term. I have one last concern about it that nobody's mentioned is that there's not going to be parking there anymore. I don't know how you expect people to get there, whether they're not going to go on the bus, at least from where I live. We call we go, we don't go in my neighborhood. And I don't think that's going to change. So I'm not helping you much. I'm just telling you that there has to be more information, and I'm going to still not go to the games. I'm going to sit at home and watch them on my TV where I can put them on hold, go to the bathroom, and my refreshments and my beers cost a whole lot less.
I don't think I'll be as entertaining, but I'll give it a shot. I'm Kay Bowers and live at 4033 Albert Drive. I'm concerned about the financial and opportunity costs of a new stadium, surrounding village, and other associated costs that are still being teased out. But I'm more concerned that Metro Council doesn't have all the financial information needed to be able to make fully informed decisions and demonstrate accountability to us, their constituents. The stadium project stands to become the most expensive in the NFL, funded by public funds. This doesn't count the value of the public land. By contrast, 86% of the Atlanta Falcons Stadium was funded by private funds. Our hospitality businesses, says they have a severe shortage of needed staff, and it's hurting services. A phone call this week with the manager at the new Marriott downtown says he has a shortage of 30% in his staffing levels needed, and he's having to close down for periods of time his bars and restaurants. Why would a development model include adding more of these businesses when our worker shortage is so severe? Who is asking the question? What type of jobs are needed in these activities and business that are going to pop up? What do they pay? Can the workers that are needed in those jobs afford to live in Davidson County on whatever that pay is? There's a connection that's not being made there, and I hope some of our elected officials will dig into that. Questions are, how much would it cost to renovate the current stadium comparable to other stadiums built within a similar time frame versus building a new one? Why are the Titans and Mayor's office proposing a new stadium instead of renovating the current one under the lease language as it's understood? Shouldn't Metro Council have a full breakdown of the stadium campus cost plus all the other associated costs and the project funding plan so they can make informed decisions? How much will it cost taxpayers to pay for the stadium village, the 2,000 parking spaces, campus infrastructure, and the capital repairs reserve fund? In order for the new stadium's financing to work, taxes must be captured in a surrounding neighborhood that doesn't yet exist. How much will that cost? What's needed to go in there? How will spending taxpayer dollars to cover vast amounts of bond debt on a new stadium initiative affect our ability to meet the equity and affordability goals outlined in the East Bank Vision Plan? Let's slow down, ensure that we get answers to critical financial questions, and help us make good decisions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ashley Batchelder. I live in District 5. I wasn't going to give comments, but there were three things that kind of stuck out to me that I haven't heard. One One, so I'm someone that lives very close to where the new stadium is being proposed to build. We live in a state where our legislators are creating the conditions that they want, not that we can have much control over. So for me in my neighborhood, I am worried about the continuing expansion of things like Airbnbs and how that is going to exacerbate the housing crisis that we already have. We saw that there was a story about this in the Nashville scene just this week. So that's very much on my mind when I think about these mega events and super events that are going to come to my neighborhood. The second thing is that every decision that we make about the development and the future of our city impacts other decisions that we make in the future as well. And so as we are building out this space for these mega events, I just think of other general services and resources that will have to go in to create the ability for that to happen. So thinking about things like likely increased policing in this area, increased resources for public works, probably other things. I haven't fully thought this through, but that's going to be taking away from other areas that we know need more resources that are already starved from it. And finally, I spent my last 10 years doing various types of community organizing, worker organizing, tenant organizing. All of those things are about trying to create better conditions, better realities for places where we live and work. And all of that requires taking risks. And so I've supported people who take huge risks to improve things like your work or your job or your home, where you risk being evicted, you risk losing your job, but that is what we have to do to get the things that we deserve. And so what do we deserve in a city with all this inequality that other people have talked about? And what are those risks that we have to take and that we're asking our elected officials to take? So whether that's taking those risks and negotiating, having those like nervous conversations, that's how I think about it as an organizer. I am very nervous every time I negotiate with a landlord or with a boss, but that is what it takes to get conditions that we deserve. So if that's better negotiating for a better funding. So if we're gonna do this, how little we can do it that takes funding from other things, or how can we get better benefits if this is going to be something that we are going to do? So we've heard somebody call it the community benefits laughable. We've heard groups that are the community organizations that are in those agreements that I assume and trust that those are good agreements, but it sounds like we can get more and better for the things that we need to do. So let's organize as a city and take those risks.
Hello, I'm Kelly. I wish I could speak to everyone back here, but I'll just speak to you. So I think one of the first things that I really have noticed sitting here is it seems like everyone who, and not to generalize, it seems like the vast majority of people who spoke in favor of this, the new stadium and are okay with this funding plan are homeowners, because renters do not pay property taxes, as I'm sure most people realize. This city is 50% renters. So I hear all of you saying, we're gonna be relieved of this tax burden. Well, I hear you and I understand you pay property taxes and I understand landlords pay property taxes, but half of this city does not and potentially will never own any land and will never be under any obligation for any of this tax burden, but only suffers the negative consequences. However, I'm also a realist, and I know that this is happening regardless. All the PR, the mayor has been pushing it, we all realize. And to the community groups who are in the community benefits platform, I hope that all of you will hold yourselves to the highest standard. And I also hope that, as Ashley just said, that instead of being handed a community benefits platform that has already been, quote unquote, I don't know, negotiated, why is there no transparency? To me, it seems like there are 16 executive directors or CEOs or something, some sort of leadership that has been involved with the Titans negotiating a community benefits platform on behalf of our entire city. That does not feel democratic. That does not feel in the spirit of community benefits. And that does not give me any hope in that any of these benefits are actually going to transpire and actually make a difference. Because the Titans, yes, have been here for a long time, but let's not pretend that the Titans have made this the it city. You know what's also come around in the past however many years since the Titans got here? High-speed internet. Instagram, Facebook. Other people have figured out about Nashville. There's promotional videos. We have a whole convention, a whole visitors and convention bureau. Of course we have grown. It is not just the Titans. So yes, I'm sure they have been a great part of our community, but what I do want to know is what have the Titans done for the residents who live in Casey Homes? What are the residents in Casey Homes going to get out of this? How do they benefit? I'm glad that people in Bellevue are going to have their property tax burden lowered a bit. I really am. And you know what? We can have that, and we can also have food and shelter for the children in this city. We can have both, but we can't have both when we give up our power and we don't negotiate community benefits agreements. We can't have both when we give up our power and we let the Titans tell us what to do. We have lawyers. Do we not have an entire Metro legal department? Why is this not being negotiated? And that's why we got to vote them out next year. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Andrew Davidson. Proud, born, raised here in Nashville. I have 3 kids that go to Metro schools. Bringing NFL and the Preds to Nashville in the 90s was the big bet on the city, and it has paid off. A new enclosed stadium could take that bet to the next level. I'm excited to see that the state, the city, and the Titans have worked together to bring that burden off of this city and help bring a new stadium to the city. It isn't a choice of doing a stadium or any other important priorities in Nashville. It's doing the stadium in a responsible way that takes the risk from the taxpayer and prioritizing our city's priorities with new revenue coming in. If affordable housing in the East Bank is important to you, then it makes sense to support the plan for the stadium. It's a good deal for the city. Multiple stadiums are coming behind us. It will be more expensive because that's a trend in professional sports. The Bears are currently working on a plan to build a $5 billion stadium and campus. So whether you do this now or try to find more information in the future, the stadium is here. This is an opportunity to, in a better way for the city, and it will bring new opportunities. Thank you.
Good evening. First off, again, thank you so much for holding these public comment hearings. That's really my question is about the timeline. I'm glad we have this one, and I'm happy we're going to have, I think, 5 more around the city. I think that's tremendously important. If we are going to do it, if it is a done deal, as Reverend Tucker said, then all of Nashville needs to know about this. We need to have a larger campaign. We really need to get this out into every nook and cranny, into all of our neighborhood associations, people talking about it. I think some folks believe it's already done. The language about not having any debt, that's simply untrue. That's some great PR from one side, but there will still be a debt to us as a city. So we need to really take our time. And I ask council and the rest of Nashville to get serious about this, to look at this. And it doesn't have to be done in a 6-week time frame. We really need to take time and be very thoughtful about this and have all of the answers, which leads me to the final question. Again, that study that council asked for that was supposed to be $200,000, that was $315,000, that gave us more questions than answers. And I hope as a body, as an elected officials, we will dig into that and get more of those questions answered to us. There needs to be some legislation for answers that we were told we were going to get that we weren't from that original one. And I hope we can get serious about those answers. Thanks again.
Hi, I'm Carol Williams. I live at 800 Russell Street in the Edgefield neighborhood. My family moved to Nashville in 1946, so I've been here a long time. I come here on 2 fronts. First of all, I'm a PSL owner and have been since the Titans came to Nashville, and I support the Titans team. My concern is, as a neighbor, I come asking for some consideration of traffic and parking issues for neighborhoods that border the stadium. I understand that they want less traffic and less parking at the stadium. But what that does to my neighborhood is it pushes all the traffic and parking and safety issues into a neighborhood rather than on Titans property or city property. Those issues need to stay with the stadium. We were promised before when the Titans came that the roads would be blocked and there wouldn't be a traffic and parking issue, but that did not develop. That there was no enforcement and it didn't work. And the fact that this new stadium is going to be used for multiple venues as a norm, as the old one was too, but with less parking is going to create, I'm in a 4x6 little historic neighborhood. Help us protect it. Safety of children. It's not just parking, it's traffic, it's pedestrians, people running stop signs, traffic backed up through the neighborhood trying to get out of the neighborhood. So you can isolate it and think lightly, oh, that's just a parking issue. Everybody has freedom to park on the public streets. That is true, but we're in a neighborhood. We're in a residential neighborhood. And I would just like some respect, some consideration from the powers that be. And it's even more frightening with the last ruling with Metro Council that limits the requirements of parking. So help us. Let's work together. This should be a rather simple issue to address. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, going once, twice, we'll wrap that up. I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. We've got all four of the at-large council members here. Berkeley Allen wasn't here at the beginning, was here now. Councilmember Syracuse is here now also. So we've got all four at-large council members. We've got every district that's really within a, 5-6 mile radius is represented here this evening. And we're holding these sessions just to be able to hear the comments. And we, as we go through our deliberations in the coming months, this is invaluable to us. Please feel free to look at the website. Please feel free to email either all of us at councilmembers@nashville.gov or any of us individually, and we'll keep getting as much information pulled together as we can. Thanks again for coming out, everybody. There's video. Hopefully you guys didn't turn the video off yet. Next Monday is the next meeting at Southeast Community Center at 6:30, not 6 o'clock, 6:30. So did I do it? I did it. All right, thanks.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.